Have you ever felt a strange unease when your bank account grew larger than you expected? A quiet guilt that whispered you didn't deserve it, or that something bad might happen if you kept it? This feeling is more common than you might think, and Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, had profound insights into why we experience what we might call financial guilt. Jung believed that the psyche, our inner world of thoughts and emotions, contains layers of consciousness and unconsciousness that shape how we relate to everything around us, including money. Money, he suggested, is far more than a medium of exchange. It's a symbol, a projection screen onto which we cast our deepest fears, our unresolved conflicts, and our shadow selves. The shadow in Jungian psychology refers to the parts of ourselves that we deny, reject, or keep hidden from the world. These rejected parts don't disappear. Instead, they linger in the unconscious, influencing our behavior in ways we don't consciously recognize. When it comes to wealth, the shadow often contains conflicting beliefs inherited from our families, our culture, and our early experiences. Perhaps your parents struggled financially and taught you, either explicitly or implicitly, that money is dangerous or corrupting. Maybe you grew up hearing that wealthy people are greedy or immoral. Or perhaps you witnessed someone's life destroyed by fortune, and you internalized a fear that abundance inevitably leads to destruction. These beliefs burrow deep into the unconscious mind, and they don't simply vanish when you become successful. Instead, they create what Jung might call a psychological complex around money, a knot of emotion and belief that tightens whenever wealth approaches. The result is a peculiar form of suffering. You might work hard to accumulate resources, achieve financial security, and reach your goals. Yet as soon as you do, something inside rebels. You feel unworthy. You sabotage your success, perhaps through reckless spending, bad investments, or self-imposed crises. You experience anxiety that seems irrational to the conscious mind. You might even unconsciously create problems that require you to give the money away or lose it entirely. Jung called this process individuation, the lifelong journey of integrating all parts of the self into a coherent whole. Without this integration, we remain fragmented, pulled in opposite directions by conscious desires and unconscious fears. When it comes to wealth, the need for integration becomes urgent. Financial guilt often stems from what Jung termed the collective unconscious, the deeper layer of the unconscious shared by all humanity. This layer contains universal symbols and archetypes that appear across cultures and throughout history, becomes linked to archetypal themes of power, transformation, death and rebirth, and the sacred. In many spiritual traditions, poverty was valorized as a path to enlightenment, while wealth was seen as spiritually corrupting. These ancient associations don't simply disappear in modern secular society. They continue to influence how we feel about accumulation and abundance. When you feel guilty for being wealthy, you might be experiencing the echo of these archetypal warnings. Your psyche is trying to protect you from what it perceives as a spiritual or moral danger. This protection, however, comes at a cost. It prevents you from fully enjoying the fruits of your labor and from using your resources to live a more authentic, fulfilling life. Jung believed that psychological health requires acknowledging and integrating the shadow. For those struggling with financial guilt, this process begins with honest self-examination. What specific beliefs do you hold about wealthy people? What messages did you receive about money as a child? What fears arise when you imagine yourself truly prosperous? These questions aren't meant to be answered quickly or superficially. They require deep reflection and often the help of a trained therapist or analyst. As you explore these shadows, patterns often emerge. You might realize that you fear becoming like a parent you resented, someone whose pursuit of money damaged their relationships and their character. Or you might discover that you believe, at some deep level, that you must suffer to earn moral worth. Perhaps you fear that if you become wealthy, others will resent you, abandon you, or try to exploit you. These fears are real and valid. They deserve to be taken seriously, not dismissed as mere irrationality. Yet acknowledging them is the first step toward liberation. Jung taught that the shadow becomes dangerous only when it remains unconscious. When you bring it into awareness, when you examine it with compassion rather than judgment, it loses its power over you. You begin to see that the voice telling you that you don't deserve wealth is not an objective truth about reality. It's an echo from your past, a protective mechanism that once served a purpose but now constrains you. In the Jungian view, true prosperity requires what might be called psychological maturity. This maturity involves recognizing that you are capable of handling wealth without being corrupted by it. It means understanding that having resources doesn't make you a bad person, even if you were taught to believe this. It involves separating your family's history from your own destiny. A key insight from Jung's work is that the unconscious mind doesn't recognize logic or argument. You cannot think your way out of financial guilt. Telling yourself that wealthy people aren't inherently evil won't heal a deep wound inherited from your childhood. Instead, healing requires a process of dialogue with the unconscious. This might happen through therapy, through creative work like painting or writing, through meditation or dream work, or through other practices that allow the unconscious to express itself. Jung believed that dreams are messages from the deeper layers of the psyche. If you struggle with financial guilt, paying attention to your dreams about money can be remarkably illuminating. You might dream of losing money, of finding treasures that vanish, of being chased by creditors, or of discovering hidden wealth. These dreams aren't random. They're your psyche's way of communicating the conflicts it's processing. By understanding these dreams, by dialoguing with the symbolic figures that appear in them, you gain access to the unconscious material that's creating your financial guilt. Another crucial element of Jung's approach is the concept of the transcended function, the psyche's natural drive to integrate opposites and move toward wholeness. Even without conscious effort, your psyche is trying to move you toward greater integration and psychological health. Financial guilt itself, properly understood, is an invitation. It's an opportunity to examine your deepest beliefs about self-worth, morality, and what it means to live a good life. By responding to this invitation with honesty and courage, you participate in your own individuation. You become more whole, more integrated, and more authentically yourself. For many people, resolving financial guilt also requires what might be called a reparenting process. If your parents or caregivers transmitted messages that money is dangerous or corrupting, you may need to consciously choose different beliefs. This doesn't mean rejecting your parents or denying your history. Rather, it means recognizing that their struggles and fears, while understandable and worthy of compassion, don't have to define your relationship with wealth. You can honor your family's journey while choosing a different path for yourself. This conscious choice is empowering. It signals to your psyche that you are no longer a child dependent on inherited beliefs. You have the authority to decide what you believe about money, abundance, and your own worthiness. This authority, claimed consciously and repeatedly, gradually shifts the deep structures of the unconscious mind. Jung also emphasized the importance of meaning and purpose in psychological health. One reason financial guilt persists is that wealth without meaning becomes a prison. If you're accumulating money but don't know why, if you're not using your resources in service of something you truly value, guilt will inevitably arise. The psyche is demanding that you align your external life with your inner values. So a critical part of resolving financial guilt is becoming clear about what you truly want your life to be about. What brings you a sense of purpose? What legacy do you want to leave? How do you want to contribute to the world? These questions may seem disconnected from financial guilt, but they're intimately related. When your wealth serves a purpose that feels authentic and meaningful to you, when you're using your resources to create something you believe in, guilt tends to dissolve. Your psyche no longer perceives your prosperity as a threat. Instead, it recognizes it as an instrument of your authentic self-expression. Jung's view also suggests that financial guilt often contains a grain of wisdom. Your psyche may be warning you against certain real dangers that come with wealth. Isolation from those who struggle, loss of empathy, disconnection from meaningful work, the corruption of relationships by financial considerations, the temptation to use money as a substitute for genuine human connection. These are legitimate risks, and your guilt might be a warning about them. The solution isn't to reject wealth, but to remain conscious of these dangers and to deliberately choose a different path. You can have resources and maintain genuine relationships. You can accumulate abundance and use it in service of something larger than yourself. But this requires consciousness. It requires regularly examining your choices and their effects on your character and relationships. It requires humility and self-reflection. Jung believed that the second half of life, after midlife, offers a unique opportunity for deeper psychological work. If you've spent your first half of life accumulating wealth, the second half might be an opportunity to ask what that wealth is actually for. What legacy do you want to create? What impact do you want to have? How do you want to be remembered? These questions often lead people toward greater generosity, toward using their resources more consciously, and paradoxically, toward greater peace and satisfaction. The silent fear of wealth, understood through Jung's lens, is ultimately an invitation to grow up psychologically. It's an opportunity to move from the inherited beliefs and fears of childhood into a more mature, conscious relationship with power and resources. It's a chance to integrate the shadow material that's been driving your behavior unconsciously. It's an opportunity to align your external success with your internal values and sense of purpose. This work isn't easy, and it doesn't happen quickly. It requires courage to look honestly at the beliefs you've inherited and the fears that drive you. It requires patience with yourself as you slowly shift deep patterns in the unconscious mind. It requires a willingness to dialogue with parts of yourself you may have rejected or denied. But the rewards are substantial. On the other side of this work lies freedom. Freedom from the constant anxiety that your success will somehow be taken from you. Freedom from the guilt that poisons your enjoyment of what you've earned. Freedom from the compulsion to sabotage your own success. Freedom to use your resources in alignment with your true values. Freedom to become the person you're capable of being, unburdened by inherited fears and unconscious conflicts. Jung's vision of psychological health was fundamentally optimistic. He believed in the psyche's capacity to heal itself, to integrate its contradictions, and to move toward greater wholeness. This vision applies directly to those struggling with financial guilt. Your guilt is not a permanent condition. It's not a sign that you're a fundamentally bad person or that you don't deserve prosperity. It's a message from your psyche that certain beliefs and fears need to be examined and integrated. By taking that message seriously, by undertaking the work of honest self-examination and psychological integration, you can move beyond guilt into a more authentic, peaceful, and purposeful relationship with wealth. The journey begins where you are now, with an honest acknowledgement of what you feel and why you might feel it. From there, with patience and compassion for yourself, you can gradually move toward the psychological maturity and integration that Jung envisioned. That is the silent fear of wealth, and that is the path beyond it.